the Before I Die New Mexico Festival 2024. Today we are at the offices of Death Doula Professionals and also Conscious Crossroads and the Life Stories Danielle Lupensky. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors who make this festival possible. That's me, a good goodbye, planning plan to die. The Bernalillo County Indigent Program, Better Place for Us, which we had Jess speaking to us at Passages International, which is another sponsor. End of Life Options New Mexico, French Funerals and Cremations, and Keeper Memorials. So please welcome to the stage.
All right, so the question of this afternoon is, would you hold a living funeral for yourself?
Yes.
Okay. How many of you have heard about this? Raise your hand. Almost all. Anybody been to one? One person. Okay. Two people. All right, that I see, and I'm sure maybe some people online. And so I'm going to give you an experiential journey of a couple things. This is what we're going to cover. I'm going to give you we're going to talk about the introduction of what is a living funeral, and it's pretty simple. You're still alive when you have your funeral. Some people get confused. Some people call it a celebration of life. But what has happened, actually, in the last few decades is they don't even call them funerals anymore. The funerals are now called celebrations of life. So sometimes the terms are a little confusing. Sometimes you may hear a celebration of life. You may hear a live celebration of life. But what we're talking about today is that you are not dead. You are attending your own funeral alive. We're going to talk about the Ron story. I'm going to show you a video of the story. And then we're going to talk about the 10 top reasons you might consider having one. And also 10 the reasons why you might not consider. This is not a good situation. What is the right time to talk about it with your family, with your friends, your loved ones? And then we're going to share with you a Bob Pike story. And then we're going to have a discussion and closure. So this is the Ron Black story. I will preface this. So I was in the Chicago Convention Center, and I was their opening keynote for 5,000 dialysis nurses. So this is the audience that I'm speaking to. I was asked to tell this story after my husband died, and they said it would really help them, and I really had to go through some soul searching to see if I could really tell this story in front of that many people when I'd never told it in 5 years. So here we go.
I'm going to share with you a story that I've never shared before. So there's a little fear there. It's a very personal story. But I believe that I had to shed what I was planning because I was supposed to close with this story with you at this divine appointed day. I get asked a lot, how did you get to Arizona? Well, I was traveling all over the world. I was speaking in Scottsdale, Arizona, got sick, got sent to somebody's friend's doctor who grounded me, said cancel all your speaking engagements, cancel all your flights for the next 3 weeks, you're grounded. So I never left. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. And it wasn't but a few days that I met this amazing man. His name is Ron Black. Now, Ron was a music man. He loved it. He lit up. Every cell of his body lit up when he was playing music, or he was teaching somebody else, adult or a child, how to play guitar. And Ron and I had wonderful times together. We played together. We rode bikes together. We just had a great time together. But I was a little guarded, you know. You've had those situations in life, maybe that you've been hurt before, and, you're just taking it slow. So, Ron and I dated, and we always dreamed that we would go to Hawaii for a few weeks in the summer. So 4 years later, the decision's made. The opportunity's there. We're going to go to Hawaii. So we booked our ticket. We booked our condo. We booked our celebratory, finally our dream has come true. And we went on our 15-mile bike ride. On the way back from that bike ride, the doctor called. It was Saturday at 8 a.m. Never a good time. Ron had just had a physical. He was in great shape, but the doctor said, your lab tests have come back and you're in a panic potassium level. And you need to get to the emergency room immediately. And Ron said, I just got off my bike. He said, get to the emergency room immediately. As I rushed him into the ER, they confirmed the test, and he wasn't at panic potassium level, and we had 4 doctors come in and all say the same thing. You should be dead. You should be dead. You should be dead. You should be dead. And then he coded. But they got him back, and they did more tests, and they found out he had renal cancer. Stage 4. No cure. So Ron had some choices to make, right? Dialysis, chemo, radiation, lots of choices. And he chose that, yes, he would choose dialysis because it would keep him alive and going. So 12 hours a week, as all you know, he was hooked up to the machine, but he was still working away on his computer. And then he would get off his bike and get off the machine and get right on his bike. Doctors couldn't explain how somebody on dialysis was doing this. And Ron and I decided 2 things. Number 1, we were going to support each other through the whole journey. And number 2, we're going to bring as much joy to the situation as possible. So Ron had a great sense of humor. I mean, he was in and out of the hospital, fluid on the lungs, infections, and every time we pulled up to the emergency room, he would go, my alma mater! Had us all laughing. Fast forward, it's the next May. May is my busiest month. Nurses Week, Hospital Week, healthcare conferences, I'm all over the place. And I had left Ron and he was doing fine. We took a 15-mile bike ride 3 days before. But it was a Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. that his dialysis nurse said, Ron isn't here. He's never late. She says, I've got to go track him down. And she went well above her job description, and sure, she started calling his home, and then his cell phone, and then his daughter, and finally she got me in Miami at a hotel, and I was getting ready to go on and speak, and we got the police in, and the police got him to Mayo Clinic, and he was alive, although the cancer had hit the brain, and he had a stroke, and he had been on the floor, bathroom floor, for 2 days. So I got rushed back to Scottsdale as quick as I could and met with the oncologist. And the oncologist showed me the brain scan, and it was like the final gunshot wound to the head. I knew then that I had to do the hardest thing that I would ever have to do, and that is sign the papers to cut off dialysis and let Ron die. But all of a sudden, some of Ron's friends started coming in, and they said, Ron, you know, can we be there for your last dialysis treatment in Mayo ICU? Can we bring our guitars and banjos? And I'm like, he said, I'm paralyzed on my left side, but my right arm, I'm going to be hooked up to the machine, but I think I can still play an air guitar. And I'm like, all right. So, another miracle. Just days ago, I found a 15-second clip of Ron's last dialysis treatment in Mayo ICU, and he's playing his air guitar. Can you run it, guys?
There was water there.
Wow, yeah. Wow. Unbelievable. Who celebrates like that, your last dialysis treatment? So after they had their jamming session, he was transferred to a hospice facility. And when he got there, I said, Ron, do you have any requests? And he says, yes, I would like an interactive funeral. I said, what? I want to be alive at my funeral. Okay, whatever. And within 24 hours, we had a live funeral. There was standing room only at the community room at the hospice center. We had people on conference calls all over the world. We had people on Skype who were dialing in and sending cards and messages to be read at the funeral. Ron, they got him up in a wheelchair, and he had us laughing 1 minute and crying the next. He said, Kathy, I'm going to be traveling with you now, speaking. I'll just be outside the plane. What? So when he took Ron back to his hospice room, I said, sweetheart, how are you doing this? How are you dying so well? I mean, I've got my graduate degree is in death and dying. Teach me. He said, you die well by living well today. Wow. Wow. And then the phone rang, and it was the organ donation people. And we had already talked to him, and I said, listen, his whole body is ridden with cancer, but can't we just do an evaluation? And they said, Ron can donate his skin. So I walk up to Ron, and I said, sweetheart, I know you're ready to go to bed, but they just called from the organ donation, you can donate your skin. And he said, I'm shedding my skin so that other people can live. Woo! You know, I went home that night to bed, and I think I realized for the first time how much this man loved me and how much I loved him to the depths of my soul. So I woke up the next morning, I looked in the mirror, and I said, you're getting married today. He was like, what? Get your parents' rings out of the jewelry box and get on your bike and pedal 3 blocks to the hospice. So I'm pedaling away, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, we've never talked about the M word. That means I'm going to have to ask him. My throat started getting a little dry and stomach started churning, and I'm like, what if he says no? I mean, what if a dying man tells you no? I mean, that'll be 10 more years of therapy. But I knocked on the door and I said, sweetheart, I have a question for you. Will you marry me? He said, yes. Yes. So then there was a knock on the door. It was the hospital's chaplain. He said, can I help you? And I said, well, matter of fact, do you marry people? He said, yeah, I got the book in my car. I'll be right back. And then he came back and he performed the ceremony right by the bedside. And then he said, you know, will you tell Lizzie to go get that bottle of water from our first date 5 years ago? And I said, you kept a bottle of water from our first date? He said, yeah. And I said, well, I guess there are some things you shouldn't shed. He said, I want to toast our wedding. And so we toasted with the water. And I said, Ron, this has been an amazing 5 years. And he said, and the next 5 are going to be even more amazing. Wow. 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 So, you know, when the minister back at Mayo ICU got there, Reverend Mirage, they had become big buddies, and he walked in the room back at Mayo ICU, and the first thing he looks up to Reverend Mirage, and he says, Reverend Mirage, I've got some bad news for you. Your guitar lesson is canceled this week. And then he said, does Jesus have a band? Because I want to be the lead guitarist, and I'm thinking I better start rehearsing because auditions are coming pretty soon. And just over and over again, this man died like I've never seen anybody. You know, I don't know about you, but I believe Ron's here today. And I think he is. He's looking down from heaven, and first of all, he wants to say to you, thank you. thank you. Thank you for what you do every day to go above and beyond, way beyond your job description, to care for these patients like they're part of your family. Because if that one dialysis nurse had not made it her mission to find Ron and track him down, he would have never lived the most amazing last week of his life. So thank you. And Ron also wanted to say, well, this is a picture of I actually did get married after his funeral. I know that sounds a little strange, doesn't it? He was alive, though. He really was alive. Yes, yes, yes.
Hire Kathy Dempsey for your next virtual or in-person event. Her Shed or You're Dead prescription will equip you to adapt faster and succeed.
His statement, you die well by living well today. It's so true. Yeah, it's the best way to prepare. And, I will say a couple things. Ron, he wasn't a nagger. Didn't harp on stuff, but he did harp on one thing for 5 years. But he said, you have to start early. You have to start with children. Please write the book for kids on shedding to help them deal with loss, death and dying. And so I'm like, oh man, how can you not do what the dying man's last wish is, right? So my friend Edie, best friend, mentor, helped me start out mentoring 30 years ago. She runs the #1 hospice in Nashville right now. And she said, well, we're getting ready to have a Camp Good Grief, and it's going to be for kids who have lost their parents, or they've gone through divorce or some kind of loss or death in their family. And she said, so if you can get that book done in time, you can come be the keynote, and we'll have a book signing, and we'll start spreading the word to all the kids and the families. So here is the book. It's the Kid's Survival Guide, Dealing with Her, Shed to Move Ahead. And if you have kids or grandkids, we are just hearing so much good feedback. It's interactive. It's true or false questions, and very interactive that you can have with your kids. And most people come back and say, this is for adults too, And it opens up all kinds of conversations, really significant ones for people. And it teaches them emotional CPR too, which this is being used in the Houston school system, the Boston school system. A lot of school systems across the country are teaching kids to shed. And I thank God that Ron really made that his last request, that I was promised to do that. So anyway, the second thing to stay tuned is that I've been working with a Hollywood producer, very well known, you would know many of his movies, for the last 2 years, and I have completed the screenplay on Married Before His Funeral. So right now we've got the top 10 actresses like Jennifer Lawrence and Julia Roberts and Reese Witherspoon to play. So just stay tuned. If you see it coming out, you'll know because you've got a little sneak preview of what the story is about. So anyway, so let's talk about now what would be the top 10 reasons you might consider a life. All right. First one is you witness the impact of your life and how much it's impacted other people. When you have a live funeral, and you can be there to actually hear what people have to say. You can express your own feelings. How much you love people, how much they love you. You can share wisdom and insights to your family, your friends, your kids, your grandkids. You can set the tone of your living room. You may want to have it be funny. You may want to have it be religious. You may want to have it be serious. You may want to have rituals. I mean, you can just plan your own party and your own music, whatever kind of music you love. Fourth one is it's a way to help people to start saying goodbye. And it's really helpful to begin that process, even though the person might not be dead right then. It starts beginning that healthy grieving process of saying goodbye. Number 5, reconcile and heal relationships. And I'm going to show you a video in just a minute of one that was pretty incredible. But it's a time before somebody dies that you can mend those. Number 6, creating lasting memories together. I mean, this is like the live funerals that I've been a part of have just been incredible. I mean, people walk away and the memories that they've shared and the stories they shared are just incredible. Number 7, it reduces anxiety or fear of death. You know, as we talked about, it's kind of a taboo subject. And God bless, Gail, who's trying to burst that bubble and make it not taboo anymore. And a living funeral is a way to do that. People feel more comfortable about it. Alleviating the financial burden of a traditional funeral. And you've heard some numbers, 10, 20, I've heard 30 plus $40,000 some people spend on funerals. Now, Ron was cremated, and so the organ donation place paid for his cremation and gave the ashes back. And of course, we didn't have a funeral after that. People were like, isn't there going to be a funeral now? No. I said, I'm taking him to Maui. He never got there. I'm going to spread his ashes on Black Rock. So I did that, which was pretty incredible. Number 9, it allows others to begin their own life decisions. And I will say, we had a big poster, it was almost as big as the screen here, that said, we love you, Ron. And people signed it during his live funeral. And one person wrote, thanks for the mentoring class, Bill Lauterbach. And little did we all know that Bill Lauterbach, he just actually died a few months ago. And he went out again in Ron style because he had learned I don't have to fear death. I can embrace it. It can be joyful. It can be celebratory. But he never had a mentor of how to die well. And the last one is celebrate life, not just death. And that is like the most precious is celebrate that life you've lived and have the party while you're still there to enjoy it all. So I showed you this. The pressure to organize and timing. And, we pulled Ron's off in 24 hours. But the reason why is because I cut the dialysis off. So I knew in a couple days, his level of consciousness was going down and he wasn't going to be, he might be alive, but he wasn't going to be, conscious. And so I'm like, we have to do this in 24 hours. And it was Mother's Day. And I had a great friends who, from around the country, pulled it off and sent messages out. And we did it in 24 hours. It was just amazing. But usually it takes more than that. And so the organization time and the timing, too, of where that person is. I've had people say they want a live funeral, but then within 24 hours, they died. So, live funeral may not work out just because of the dying process itself. Number 6, possible culture or religious constraints. And a lot of religions, like Jewish, Gail, you may be able to speak to that. Don't they have a certain amount of days where they have to...
After the funeral?
Yeah.
It's 7 days of Shiva.
Okay, Shiva, yeah.
Sitting Shiva at the house and people come and visit.
Yeah. So it may be for a religious reason, you may not want to do a living funeral, or you may want to do a living funeral and then do a Shiva, or whatever your religion is. And but there might be constraints there you need to consider. Number 7, witness the impact of your life. Some people just don't want to do that. And they don't want to admit it, or they feel like they haven't had an impact on people, and they're embarrassed in that respect. When to ask. It can be a little challenging. Maybe when they bring up legacy or end-of-life issues, matters, situations. Maybe during events, planning conversations. So if we've had this whole festival, is a good time. After a life-changing diagnosis, is a really good time to bring up what they may desire or want, or give them options. You know, we've learned all kinds of options for funerals and green funerals all Friday. I mean, I was like amazed with some of the options. So people don't even know, you want to have a living funeral? I didn't know I could have one. So when they show an interest in celebrating relationships is a good time. You want to just have a party? You want to have a party at the end? And during periods of reflection, is a good time to have some of these conversations. When they're open to conversations about their mortality and dying and what do they want to do, choices they want to make at the end. And when there's a significant family gathering planned, like Kim talked about when her husband died twice, and you know, she decided to have a family gathering and kind of a live funeral the last day, right, Kim? That's right. So, and when they are mentally and emotionally stable, you don't want to deal with this, and you know, when they're just emotional or crying or just hurt, you know, maybe terminal diagnosis. So you have to be sensitive to when to ask. Bringing up a living funeral requires a lot of empathy and respect and listening. It's best to introduce it as an option, just in a calm, open-ended way, allowing the space to respond without any pressure at all. Just consider it, maybe think about it. So I'm going to share you now a video of Bob Pike Story. Bob Pike was a mentor of mine for many years in the 1990s. And his wife called me about 3 years when he got his diagnosis of stage 4 renal cancer. Same diagnosis as Robert's. Wow. And she said, will you be there at the end? Will you just promise to be there at the end? I need your support. And, you know, when we finally, Bob decided to stop the treatments and go on hospice. And I said, you know, Andrew, would you think Bob would consider it? And she goes, I think so, but let's wait till after the hospice admits him, and then why don't you come over later in the afternoon and just ask him if he's open to it. So I'm going to show you just some clips of his live funeral. He was known as the trainer's trainer in the world. He's an author of 42 books, and his impact of what he did on so many people's lives, and both personally and professionally, and especially my life here. Now you'll see in the clips, just to give you a taste of, because this was about an hour and a half, there was about 100 people in the room, and there was 400 people on Zoom from across the world. We had to time it because people wanted to come from Singapore and Japan and, you know, Australia and all that. So we adjusted the time a little bit, so they got up at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock, but they wanted to attend, and then we allowed them at the end to actually have one-on-ones with Bob through Zoom to talk to him. So I do want to say before I play this that it's when people get to the end of their life, as many of you know, their faith, their beliefs, their religion all comes in, and we just need to honor. It may not be our beliefs, but we need to honor and respect and ask them what they want and how they want. So, so here's Bob Pike's.
So today, we gather in sadness, yes, but also in joy and in gratitude for the life and achievements of an extraordinary individual who has touched the lives of countless people, Bob Pike, throughout the world. And many of them are on this Zoom. A beacon of inspiration and wisdom stands among us as we celebrate his legacy while he's still with us.
Well, how are you? Hey, Bob, what a great idea this is. I thought I was creative. I wrote a eulogy for my own funeral and had it videotaped. to be shown at my funeral. But this is a lot better, having a party before you even leave. So I'm going to steal this idea, just like I did a lot of other good ideas that you had. And I pray going forward that you will realize what an amazing place you're headed to. And I hope you'll whisper in my ear what it's like, so I have a sense of what I'm heading towards. So God bless, Bob. I love you. And all these people here are here because they love and admire you. God bless.
Okay, now.
I attended his national conference the next year, and I got up the courage and muster to walk up to him in front of 600 people and say, Bob, I want to be a national speaker, but I'm afraid of speaking. Can you help me? He rattled off 5 things: get a master's degree, teach a college course, go to Toastmasters, get a mentor, and join NSA. What's NSA? The National Speakers Association. And in fact, this weekend, the Georgia Speakers Association is going to have a meeting, and the national president, Glenna Salisbury, will be there. What a mentor. What a mentor. What a friend. In 2000, when my dad was killed in a car accident, Bob was the first person I called after my sister. And I was sobbing on the phone and out of town and alone. And Bob prayed with me. And I said, I'm supposed to be at Eli Lilly tomorrow to present. And he said, I'll hop on a plane and go for you. Then 2008, I had emergency surgery. Bob calls again. He prays again. And again, I say, I'm supposed to speak in Istanbul, Turkey this week. He dropped everything, got on a plane. And I told him, but they're doing a book signing. They've got hundreds of my Shatter Your Dead books with Lenny and everything. He said, I'll handle it.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see.
3 bonds that I think Bob and I have shared that I think many of us here will relate to, and many of you online will relate to as well. And that's professionally, personally, and spiritually. And so I'm going to make a point about each of those. I'm going to tie a learning point to each of these as well. I mean, at a Bob Pike Group event, there's got to be a takeaway, right?
Can y'all sing with me somehow? Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Much love and prayers to all of you. Love you, Bob. Love you, Andrea.
Hi, Bob. This is Ayako from Japan. As a representative of all the trainers in Japan, I would like to say thank you very much for creating creative training technique and your continuous passion.
I'm just wondering if a speaker trainer par excellence, CPAE, hallelujah, has anything to say?
No. Yes. So, yes, I do. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. Everybody has been so kind and gracious. And there are also mistakes that I've made. And one of them is I've not always supported my wife the way I should. And so I would encourage those of you that are married, take a second look at your relationship and put your spouse first. And I think the same thing for my children, that I always valued that I was a good provider, but I also didn't want the pain of trying to interact. And so for the first 10 years after my divorce, I probably didn't see my kids that much, and I know they suffered from it. And so I want to say, don't forget your children, and that they are so important. And it's great that I built a business, and it's great that I've influenced all these people, and I don't take away from that at all. But the one thing I can say is that Jesus has forgiven me. And 1 John 1:9 says, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. And so for those of you that have had any thoughts about anything that's been said spiritually today, I challenge you to take a good look at Jesus, because I'd rather 5 people here say I'm in heaven because of Bob than 5,000 say I'm a better trainer because of Bob. And so I just want to thank everybody for coming, everybody for supporting us, and I especially want to thank my wife.
I don't know about you, but I think that's the best speech you've ever given in your life.
Bob gave me this quote. He said, holding 100% live virtual conference is a huge risk, ... unless you have the right team. Bob, you have the right team here today. Please, one more round of applause for the entire team that created this program here for you today.
Thank you.
So for all of you, first off, I just want to say we love you, Bob. And now let's just take a moment with everyone else. Hey, everyone on virtual, do me a favor and first unmute. On the count of 3, will all of you please say, we love you, Bob. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
We love you, Bob.
Thank you.
We love you, Bob.
Thank you.
Love you, Bob.
Love you, Bob.
Love you, Bob.
Love you more.
I should say 2 of my daughters were able to be here representing the family. And I just think this is going to be a great celebration. I am honored to serve many of you in a variety of ways. And I continue to pray for each of you every day. So, as Ken Blanchard would say, God bless and on with the show.
So, can we have a few of you share? What was most impactful?
Well, for me, it was really focused on his family. Here he's all around the world, people are there, and he's like, but I left my family out. And I think for us to really remember what's important in life. You know, we all tend to, around death, around this last stage of life, come back to our families, the important people in our life.
Right. So family is so important. You saw how he really apologized to his wife, apologized to his kids that, you know, he hadn't been the best dad and father. And he was able to say that not only to his children and wife sitting there, but he said it to the world. And so I think it was very healing.
And courageous.
And courageous, yes.
And he was telling the other men too, because
exactly.
we're very keenly aware there's a type of shortcoming going on. That's been going on for a long time.
Right. So he was saying, pay attention to your kids, pay attention to your spouse. He was giving some words of wisdom as he was parting. What else?
Gratitude.
Gratitude. Yes. Absolutely. He was so grateful for the ability to do what he did and have his family. He and Andrew had 12 children together. I feel like I'm an adopted daughter. So I feel I'm so blessed to just be a part of him, not only professionally, but more so, as you said, just this. I love this man. I love him so dearly. One more thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Just a sense of completion.
Yeah, the sense of completion. Yeah, some closure that he was able to say. He did live about 8 weeks later, and the last few days, the day I was there, 24 hours before, and I don't know if you saw the little white dog that was sitting on his lap. That's my dog, Gabriel, and Gabriel is a death doula dog. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but he actually, more than one time, he will just lay in bed with the person who's dying, and he will not move. With my brother-in-law, we were there for weeks, and he would not get out of bed. I would have to pull him just to have him eat and go to the bathroom, and then he wanted to be by Michael until he died. So he's got Gabriel's a very spiritual dog. So this last thing I want to show you this is Andrea, his wife, and she wanted just to say a few words as being the spouse, and so I thought you may enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Andrea Pike, and today I want to take a little bit of time to tell you a little bit about my husband and our story. My husband, Bob Pike, was an interesting and unique and talented man. He was the author of 42 books. He was inducted into the Speakers Hall of Fame. He was inducted into the Legends as a speaker. He was given the Lifetime Achievement World Award as a trainer. And he mentored a lot of people in his life. But after a long time, he was diagnosed with stage 4 renal cancer, and it was metastatic. We had to make some decisions and planning, and after 3 years, we came to the conclusion that we were going to do something different for our end-of-life planning. We were contacted by a dear friend, Kathy Dempsey, and she asked us about a celebration of life for Bob while he was still alive. Bob thought that was just great. I mean, I think he said at one point, "This is probably the best stuff I'll ever hear about myself. I want to be there to experience it." And that's exactly what we did. And because he had so many friends and contacts all over the world, well, we had well over 100 people at our home, and several people from around the country got together and made it available for people to come into our home from around the world. We just had to schedule it at times that weren't so difficult for people, like getting up in the middle of the night. And we were able to hear from people about what they thought about my husband. And he was able to tell me and our children and our friends what they meant to him. And it was such a perfect end of life planning situation. And so I would encourage all of you out there who are doing something or thinking about something for yourself or a family member to consider a celebration of life while they're still here on earth. And you can make it a joyful and meaningful event. Now, the other part of that is that we decided not to have a funeral. We were so excited and happy about the celebration of his wonderful long life that we chose to make that the memory that I have from him. It was one of the greatest gifts that he ever gave to me. So, you know, if you're thinking about something like this, I'd say contact somebody like Kathy Dempsey. I think you might be pleasantly surprised.
I hope you may just consider that when the place and time comes. Just thank you for showing up today. Most of life is just showing up today. That's what, and I will close with Ron's statement that it's so profound. You die well by living well. So thank you again for being here today.